Grand Rising, everyone. It is the end of the week yet again, and I wanted to touch up on some things pertaining to the household of our community, as well as the children in the household, and the important role that they play within our community as Black and brown people, right? So stay tuned as we get into it. Welcome to my channel, and I would like for you to hit that subscribe button if you are not already a part of my community, and I will also like you to share this video if you did enjoy the content. Please get to at least 20 minutes of it. I know that I talk long but it's lessons throughout my entire video. I don't talk for no reason, y'all. I don't have fluff or nothing up in here, so just go ahead and hit that subscribe button and like this video, and then share if you feel like somebody else can appreciate my content. Thank you. And so I'm going to be continuing or rather piggybacking off the conversation I had with you guys last week about the roles of the king and queen in our communities, right? And I feel that through the breakdown of our families, the structure, the community, just the knowing of how to communicate with one another, it not only changed the dynamics of how other people see us, but it also changed the dynamics of how we were supposed to be raising up each other, right? So in a household, any household really, any organization, any system, it has to have structure. Without structure, without a sound foundation, without a base that you could start on, what happens? You get chaos, you get discord, you get all types of realities that you just really don't want to deal with, you know? So I'm going to get into that about the household. And then also I'm going to touch up on children, right? Children are our future. They really are. They are the extensions of us that are supposed to move on forward and create a better way than what we have created, right? But if we do not show them how to do that, how will that get done? So I want to stop using the term descendants, you mean passing down to, and we need to start changing the mindset to using the word ascendant, meaning to raise up, to rise up, right? So our children should be considered our ascendants, not descendants. I'm not trying to pass anything down towards my children anymore. I'm trying to raise them up from, right? Another word that I decide that I'm trying to train my brain to stop saying is understand. I don't want to use that word anymore. Understand, overstand, or comprehend. Know the difference between the three. Use them interchangeably, but just eliminate that word understand, because words have power. We already know that, especially people on spiritual journeys. All of us are waking up all over the world, so you do know that words are spells. Words have power over you and other people. And that's another video for another day, but look it up, look up what understand means, where it came from, how it got into our vocabulary. Also look up understand, look up overstand. Just look these things up, because how you speak, right, over yourself and how you speak to someone else can alter the energy that surrounds them and yourself. Just think about that. Okay, so move forward. The household. You have to have structure. So there are different families, units spread throughout, particularly in our Black and brown communities, the so-called African American family or Latino family consists of different units, right? It could be where you live with the man, the woman, or the wife and the husband, or even the mom and the mom, or the dad and the dad. And you also live with the grandma and the auntie and the uncle, and things like that. Depending on how your unit is, you need to learn how to function together, because if everybody don't know their defined roles, if everybody does not pitch in, if everybody fails to contribute to the community within the household, then you will get dysfunction, right? If the mom has to cook and clean after 10-15 people who's living in the house, mom is going to be pretty upset. If dad has to continue to pay all the bills, even though, he has an extended family in the house, dad is going to feel stressed and worn down, because now he got to take on more hours in order to provide for the household. And the same thing, vice versa, goes for the man and the woman. But if everybody can pitch in and together as a united group have chores or timetables of when you will get certain things done, then it will become easier. Then the air will become lighter, or there won't be any buildup of tension, right? If you decide that it's just going to be you and your children living in a household as a single parent, or as a married couple, or just a committed couple, right? Then you should also have certain rules and regulations to go off of. When you do not have structure, when you do not have structure, it tends to break down, right? Now that we know that structure relies on rules and is a type of system that you go according to in order to prevent breakdown, also keep in mind you also have to have communication. If you guys do not talk, certain things can get away from you. So, for example, my household used to consist of, it was interchanging. My particular motherhood for me, it went from me and my baby living with my mom, my dad, and my baby brother, right? Then I moved out, and then my household consisted of me, my baby, and my child's father. Then it went from me, my child's father, and my baby to living with his mom, her husband, and the little sister. Then it went to living with the grandma. I've been living in different places, y'all. Don't judge me. I've been trying to get it together. So my point is that I've been living in different households. Each household unit, I knew my role. I knew that I had to help contribute to cooking and cleaning. I knew that I was a mother. I had to take care of my child. I knew that I had to respect the woman of the house. Now, many of you don't understand that when you live in a unit and a structured system, there is going to be hierarchy. It's just natural. It's just the way it is. You can't have two alpha females. You can't have two alpha males. Even in same-sex marriages, one is going to be taking on a specific set of roles, as the other one is going to be taking on a specific set of roles. It's hard when y'all both have the same set of roles and you trying to maintain respect, and you're trying to maintain clear lines because y'all have the same thing that y'all supposedly be doing, or there was no spoken rules. Pretty much how you going to go about running your life, right? So any place I lived, it didn't matter with who or whom. I knew my role as me, as a person, as a mom, and as a guest in someone else's house. When I got into my own place, unfortunately, it was me, my two children at that time. And the role was, I went to school to get my degree. And I also took the children to school because they were starting preschool. And then I also was responsible for the cooking and the cleaning and things like that. Now, that even though my children were at that time ages 3 and 4, it didn't stop me from giving them their own specific set of rules. Why? Because you want to teach your children at an early age that they have to contribute to the whole. You don't want them to think that they could just lay up in the house or even go out into society and not have to do anything. Everybody has to pitch in to make the dream work, right? Teamwork, make the dream work. So when they were 3 and 4 years old, they were responsible for picking up behind themselves, such as their toys and things like that. They knew that after they eat, you take your plate to the kitchen, or you let mommy know, I'll collect the dishes or whatever. They knew that when they came in from school, they had to change their clothes and get into something comfortable. They knew that when it was time for bed, they had to turn off the TV in the living room, and they had to, put away the toys or the video games or whatever it was that they was using to entertain themselves, and then they had to go to bed. They also was responsible for making a bed up in the morning. Even though it wasn't the perfect way, it wasn't what I would do, but their role was to make their bed up in the morning. You have to give people, anyone, you have to give and know your specific roles in order to make a system works, right? Now, when I became involved with someone again, and then I had more children, that responsibility then included, and it was distributed amongst the many additions to my family. So me and my husband then split the responsibility of making sure that the bills were paid and making sure that the house was clean, making sure that we stay on our children with their chores, because kids will not want to do chores. They don't feel like they got to do anything. They want everything done for themselves. But it's a hard transition, I guess, when you going from baby where everything is being done for you, and then all of a sudden you have to start doing things for yourself, right? But that's why it's better to start implementing these roles, these rules, or the order early on in childhood, because you want to be able to gradually transition them into a full set of responsibilities. A lot of kids, especially teenagers, when you all of a sudden spring stuff on them, they like, I didn't ask for this. No, you will never ask for it, but it's something that is already going to happen whether you want to or not, because with age, it's supposed to be maturity, and with maturity and age comes responsibility, and everybody has a set of responsibilities. Everybody. When you do not want to take responsibility, when you do not want to be mature, when you don't want to do what you have to do to take care of yourself, house and home, you may end up on the street. You understand? And this is not for everybody who's out on the street. This is a little side note, but I feel that a lot of people who are out in the street, it is their choice. They don't want to conform to the certain rules or responsibilities that were set for them, so they decided to do their own thing. And for them, being rebellious, living out on the street is a better option than being told you gotta work, being told you gotta clean, being told you gotta live by the rules of my house. And because even in certain shelters, you have rules. Some people don't like the rules. You're not going to tell me when I got to come and go to bed, turn the lights out on me, and things like that. They don't like that. Sometimes you got to go through the uncomfortable stuff in order to get to the glory. Sometimes you have to go through the uncomfortable stuff in order to get to the glory. So when it comes down to those people, not all of them, some people just had a hard life and ended up on the street, and they just don't know any other way to get back on their feet. That's why they need people such as you and myself to do the right thing and maybe stop and say, how can I help you? Is there something that I can do for you? Things like that, because you want to make sure that you put in your effort and your energy out there, because you never know when it may come around and you're going to need somebody to help you out. So anyway, talking about children and how they need to learn the responsibilities, ease them into it gradually. If they can start walking, then they can learn to start picking up behind themselves. If they can ask for food, eat, bye, whatever, die, mama, then you can say, okay, I'm going to give you what you want, but when you finish, I'm going to show you how to put it away. Are you finished with your bottle? Are you finished with your sippy cup? Walk to the kitchen and put it in the sink. Or walk over to a certain designated area and put your things here so mommy knows But if daddy knows, or whoever the adult is in the house knows that you're done, and then we can go ahead and get that clean. I want to play with something. If kids pulling out toys, right, then, and you see that they finish, because children have very short attention spans, make it a routine, make it a game, make it fun, that when they finish, then you go ahead and you put it away. Make a song about it. Music, one of the universal languages, music, rhyming words, things like that, has a way to stick inside children's heads. And then, well, anybody at that matter. But you can make a song about cleaning up. Barney used to do it all the time. Y'all remember that annoying dinosaur Barney? I'm pretty sure some of y'all can still watch Barney. I do not like Barney anymore. I haven't liked Barney in a long time. But you can make a song out of doing certain chores so that they get used to the idea. It's all about training them. I don't like to use the word manipulation. It's kind of what it is, but you want to train them and get used to the way a household should be ran, right? If you are the type of parents who's like, I'm gonna let my kids do whatever, I had to do everything when I was a kid, so I'm not gonna make them do anything, that is your choice. I'm not here to say your way is the wrong way. I'm just saying that in a society, in a community, everybody needs to know their roles. So if you believe that you don't want to give your child or children any responsibility, any rules, or any chores because of what happened to you growing up, understand that what you're trying to avoid, you're still putting in your child. It is just the way it is. What you're trying to avoid, you're still putting into your child. You could still implement structure without making them feel like slaves. Some parents are lazy and they feel like when they have children, they don't have to do nothing but make sure that the children eat, and that the children have a bed, and that the children have clothes, and that they go to school. That's it. They like everything else you do. You're gonna do the cleaning. You're gonna go grocery shopping, things like that. And that's like stealing the childhood away. You don't want to steal the childhood away. You really don't. So when it comes to children in the household, besides the roles, you have to make sure that they have 3 things: discipline, right? Identity, and unity. You want to make sure that they have those 3 things. You want to make sure that they have these 3 things because it helps to shape the type of person that can function on their own. Okay? Now, I'm going to tell y'all a story. Currently, I'm going through an issue with my youngest son. And the issue is that unlike my older 2 children, right, I don't physically discipline him. Now, he must have got a pop on a hand or maybe a spank on a butt. I want to say maybe 2 or 3 times in his whole 7 years of life, going on 8 years of life. And I know the saying in the black and brown communities, especially the black community, spare the rod, spoil the child, right? But I don't necessarily believe in that, because when it came down to my older 2, and I used to give them butt whoopings, right, to discipline them when they did something that was like out of order, it was disobedient, or they just downright did something they ain't had no business doing. You know, it wasn't effective. What it did was, in one child, it created fear, where they was just afraid to like do and be whatever it is that they wanted to do or be. And then in the other child, it created rebelliousness, right? I don't know if that's a word, but it created a rebellious nature in that particular child, which was my oldest son. And what he did was, he knew that if he did something he wasn't supposed to, he was going to get in trouble. He was willing to take the butt whooping. It was like, I'm going to get in trouble anyway, so I'm going to continue to do it even worse. So if he missed curfew, he don't miss curfew by like 15 minutes because he already knew that, okay, you missed curfew, you're going to be on punishment. He would stay out for hours. And I'm like, where's my child? I'm worried. Many times he done missed out on, hours and days of just going outside and being a kid. Playing with certain toys or whatever. And whooping your child, especially if they're that type of kid where they just want to take on a punishment, they don't care because they still want to do whatever they want to do, it breaks their spirit. It does. It breaks their spirit, and now they move as if they're not present in here. They just got the shell, and they just, give in to all of the temptations. They don't have no true discipline. Because whooping a child doesn't create discipline. It doesn't. It creates fear, or it creates a rebellious nature. So, all for them, and coming back to my 7-year-old, me and his father, his father and I, right? His father and I, we decided that the butt whoopings were not effective. And my husband and I, we had different ideas of parenting, right? Him being a male, I'm assuming it was because of that, but him being the male, he wanted to assert dominance. Him being the male, he wanted to make sure that the children were afraid of him so that they don't think twice about going against his wishes. Me as a mom, and I'm not saying all females is like that, because some females I've seen growing up, even in my own family, they want the child to be afraid. You're going to fear me, because if I say something, you don't do it, you should know you're going to get it. Me, on the other hand, I'm like, respect me first. Respect me. I want you to be afraid of disappointing me, not afraid that I'm going to take my hand and raise it up against you. Now, the reason why I am not for physical punishment, or as my dad likes to call it, corporal punishment, I'm not for that, is because it's still a slave mentality. Think about that and let that sit in. It's still a slave mentality. It's a symptom of what was done to us that we didn't heal from ages ago. We don't have to beat submission into our children. We don't have to do that. Because in a way, like I said, it breaks the spirit, therefore taking away their true identity. Who are they to you, and who are they to themselves? So I don't necessarily agree with whooping. That don't mean that the old mother in me doesn't want to sometimes, grab my son up and whoop that ass. Because sometimes I do. And kids have a way of pushing your dang on buttons. So I'm dealing with him, and I realize that the more I talk to him, the more he feels like he has other options than to respect me or to listen to me. Now, again, I'm talking about a 7-year-old. So my tolerance of disrespect and discord is not really registering with me. So he definitely doesn't like it if I make a phone call and now I'm on the phone with his dad, because of how he feels towards his dad, whether it's more respect or just more fear. But when his father gets involved in that picture of disciplining him, and it's all verbal, he gets even more mad at me. So I really don't understand that. I'm trying to work on it. I'm gonna make another video about the results of all of that. But my husband and I agreed that, even though we're living in separate households for our own personal reasons at the moment, he's going to come and he's going to work out a systematic resolution to correct our child. Now, this is what I mean by household roles and responsibilities, right? You have to create different systems in order to keep and maintain structure. You can't just build a building, right, and then run into a problem and be like, oh, I can't build this anymore because I have an obstacle. No, you have to find another way. You have to problem solve. You have to find another way or implement another system of doing things just to make sure that you're on track and you get the job done. It's the same thing with children. You have to make sure that you continuously building on them, because if you decide that you're not going to do something, or you're going to prevent them from learning certain kinds of disciplines or certain kinds of ways of correcting their behavior, they're going to think it's okay to grow up and be that certain kind of way. For example, I know this man in my life. I'm not going to say names, but I know this man in my life, and he's a family member of mine. And his mom, from what I was told by both the mother and this man, his mom, when he was younger, always gave him or tried her best to give him what he wanted, even though it went against the whole group. So if you have 3 brothers and you're the only one who's like, I don't want to wear this, I want to wear that, and the mother says, okay, I'm gonna make you wear that, and then the other kids gotta wear, don't have a problem with wearing what mom said to wear, is creating a false reality. You're pretty much telling him as a kid, it's okay to get what you want, and if you don't get what you want, it's okay to throw a temper tantrum. Now, it was the same thing with food. He didn't eat certain things. He was a very picky eater. So instead of making him eat what was served, she would make separate or different meals for him. If they went out to a restaurant or whatever, and she's like, please make sure, the cheeseburger doesn't have pickles and onions and mayonnaise on it. I just want a burger with cheese. That's it. Bread, meat, and cheese. And they mess up on the order. That's something different. But at the same time, if your child is that I don't know the word, but if your child is not willing to bend a little, and he always or she always has to have her way, you have to learn to correct that behavior, because you're setting your child up for disappointment in life. Life, in the outside world does not work that way. You get all the time what you want, and if you don't, you get to act a fool. That's not how life works, especially in this society. You act a fool because you don't get what you want. Oh, best believe somebody is either going to step to your face or somebody's going to call the police, depending on what age you are. Nowadays, it don't even matter what age you are for you to get the police called on you. It just matters what color your skin is. But what I'm saying is, you have to correct your child, right? You have to correct your child, and you have to create discipline. So this particular gentleman, my family member, he grew up with this notion, and it showed that when it was time to contribute to the household, right, and he wasn't making the type of money that he wanted to make when he wanted to make it, like it wasn't coming fast enough, it wasn't enough, and maybe because it was a single parent household and he was the oldest, he just felt like he was obligated to do certain things for that family and his brothers. So he went out and he started to dabble in a life of crime, which then led him down a life of being incarcerated, in and out of jail. So he not only missed out on a lot of things, but he then created a reality that was controlled by incarceration. Now, we all know the systems implemented in prison is not the best system. It really isn't. Not for somebody's spirit or soul at all. Now, one can find themselves sort of in prison. You become very book smart, legally, and things like that. But it stunted his growth in the sense that when he finally got out of prison, because you don't want to go back for the 3rd time because they're going to throw the book at you and be like, you can't get out now. But when he wound up going home the 3rd time and trying to reconvene his life, things were very difficult for him, and it got more and more difficult because his mentality and his perception on how life works was not that of society. So therefore, he was not able to function. Now, I take that back to his childhood. Not that she knew any better, because she really didn't, because of her own childhood and her own upbringing. And then when women have children, they tend to compensate or try to compensate. Not correct. They try to compensate what they cannot give their children, right? With giving them any and everything that they could, right? Or if the dad's not there and the child is like, oh, I hate this, da, da, da. Oh, it's okay. Woo, 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 it's okay. No. Women, you guys are warriors, right? In a way, you can be the alpha and the omega, right? We create life through our womb. We are more than capable of raising children. In fact, it is our job and our role to raise our children in a right mindset. Okay, going back to my last video, the men will teach the child how to survive in the world. The woman first has to shape and mold this child, give them all the A, B's, and C's, 1, 2s, and 3s, all of the ins and outs of what it takes as a person, right? What it takes as a person to function. You know, we teach them how to be nurturing. We teach them how to be respectful. We teach them how to take care of themselves. We teach them a lot of different things, right? A lot of things. Both the female and the male child, we teach them. Our mothers had to teach us. Our mothers had to teach the man as well. Like, our role is so important. So the child's role is to learn and understand and be accepted. Now, when your child starts to break down because they don't comprehend what it is that you're dishing out to them, it becomes a disconnection, a disassociation, because they see you are supposed to be loving and you're supposed to respect them. So when you start doing disciplinary actions that you weren't doing before, it's like, oh, you don't like me, you don't love me. That's not it. That's why it's really important to implement a sound structure early on. That's why it's really important to plan having children when you're mentally, spiritually, and emotionally ready to have children, because when you have children, who you are, what you are, you put into your child. So it's important to get it together. Like, I'm not talking that particular part from experience. When I am talking is what you already know. I'm working on myself. Therefore, I'm making changes to my parentinghood, my motheringhood. And it's working with the majority of my children, but with my son specifically, it's taking a little bit more time. My son and my oldest daughter, my youngest son and my oldest daughter is very much alike. And what I realized is that they are developing their identity poorly. And it's happening poorly because, based off what they've told me and what I've observed, they feel invisible. And that is my fault. I mean, it's not just my fault, it's the parents' fault. But as a mom, it is your job to make sure that your child is intact. You know, you can't force a man to do that. Men can do it. Men can do it. They're capable because we taught them how to do it, right? Well, we should have taught them how to do it, but it's the mother's job. It's the mother's role. And that was really hard for me to accept. For 3 days, I was sitting with a heavy heart. Like, I felt like I was dying on the inside. And that's nothing more than a grieving process. If you're on your spiritual journey, it's a grieving process. You're going to go through a lot of ups and downs. You're going to realize as you reflect and continue to reflect, it's not, I thought it was something that I was going through so fast. Like, oh yeah, I'm good at this. You know, I'm coming into my own. I'm finally waking up. My eyes is completely open. But that's not what it was. You know, I have feelings of enlightenment and everything. And I was like, yeah, I'm doing great. And it only happened, you know, in 2 months. I learned that it goes off, it comes on, and it happens for a whole lot more months, even years, for you to be completely awakening. Because what you're doing is you're going through a learning experience, right? You're learning yourself because you didn't know yourself before, right? So you're learning yourself and you're going through this learning experience, and you don't learn something just in one day. It takes repetition. It takes practice. So when it came down to my son, I was trying to figure out different ways to implement discipline. How can I have him comprehend his punishment? What kind of system can I put into place so that he can start to change his behavior? So one of the things that he felt, that triggered him, was he felt like nobody saw him. Now, coming from a 7-year-old, this is pretty significant, because it's like, wow, you really came up with that concept and really comprehend that you feel invisible, that nobody sees you. So children are smart. Children are smart. And they may not always know how to express themselves or articulate themselves in a manner that we understand. However, when a child speaks, you have to listen. It's part of the communication process. Communication just don't start with adults. Communication starts within adults, and it also starts within children. You have an innate communication line just when your child is inside your body. Y'all communicating spiritually. What you feel, your child was feeling, right? And in a way, you develop a system or a set of know-hows that when your child was feeling something growing inside of you, you were feeling something inside of you. You understand? Y'all shared this connection. That's something that can be turned off, but you should fight like hell to keep that alive. And it has to be continued in practice once the child is born. You always have to try to keep that communication. Communicate with your eyes, you got to see them. Communicate with your words, you have to speak to them. And communicate with your ears, you have to learn to listen. It's one thing to hear, but you have to listen, take in and digest what it is that your child is saying to you. And then you do that with adults as well. So my son was saying, my oldest siblings, he didn't use these words, but he pretty much was saying that his brothers and sisters, they don't make time to play with him. When he's talking, they ignore him. I felt his pain. I felt his pain, and I was trying to implement change by addressing the issue head on, by gathering the children up and letting him have a platform to be heard, because communication is key. So by them listening to him, they started to soften up the hardness that they had towards, it's that thing called sibling rivalry, right? And, all kids don't get along for whatever reason. And I'm learning that they compete. They're competing for attention, and they're competing for love, and they're competing to be seen, and they're competing for time, right? That's natural. It is. So as a parent, you have to be able to have enough resources in order to feed your child what he or she is in need of. And they may not have the voice. They may not have the voice to express to you what it is that they need. So you have to learn to communicate with them. You have to see them. You have to listen to how they speak. What is it that they're speaking? You got to learn to feel the vibrations coming up off your child. That's why it's important to always work on that connection, because what happens is that you may be so consumed in your life, especially if you're a drinker. If you're a drinker or you use drugs, be whatever, it turns off your sensories, right? It turns off your sensors. And if something is going on with your child, you may not snap out of it enough to realize that you just missed a major flag or signal coming from your child, and something bad happens. And you're like, oh my God, how did this happen? Because you wasn't paying attention, right? And that's how you can catch bullying if your child is being bullied, or some type of molestation or whatever. Things like this happens, and you can pick it up by studying your child, by communicating with your child. You have to make them feel comfortable and secure at home. If you do not make them feel comfortable and secure at home, as they get older, they're gonna become disconnected. It starts early, and they're gonna become disconnected, and then they're gonna start moving out into the world, because now they have freedom, and they're gonna start clicking with other like-minded, vibrating individuals who think like them, act like them, and a group of these people together do not implement change. So then they start to form what is known as gangs, and they're gonna go and do whatever it is that they want, because they felt like they weren't validated at home. So if you have an angry child who feel like they're not seen, they're gonna be a bully. They may go out and try to harm people because they feel hurt on the inside. Whatever you feel on the inside, you manifest in your actions on the outside. And I cannot say that enough. Everyone, please listen to what I am saying. Whatever you feel on the inside, whatever it is, whether it's good or bad, you will manifest it in your actions. And that's how you're going to treat other people, and that's how you're going to treat yourself. So it is important that you are able to identify who your child is, because if they don't have an identity, they're going to feel like they don't matter. And that's the worst thing, to have a soul feel like it has no significance. Make your child matter. It could be something as simple as taking time out and going down a list of things of what you appreciate about them. You know, telling them how much you adore them, appreciate them, and proud of them. I didn't hear that enough. Not from my dad, I didn't hear I'm proud of you enough. I heard from my mom all the time, you're beautiful and I'm proud of you, things like that. But words have power. And the intent on those words, how you give it up, think of it as a gift. You know. Now think about what is the story? The story Sleeping Beauty, right? And Maleficent came and she gave Aurora a gift. And it was a spell. It's the same thing. It is the same thing. And the fairy godmothers gave the Aurora a gift. It was words. It was a spell. It's the same thing. It's the same thing. So speak over your child with positivity, reinforcement. I tell my kids, ever since I started this spiritual journey, you are kings and queens. And as you ascend, you will become gods and goddesses. And I very much believe that, because that's who I see them to be. My children are extraordinary people. They're extraordinary. And only a mother, meaning us women, are able to see the essence that we placed inside of our reflections. Meaning all people. That's why women are so kind and nurturing. You understand? And women can turn that off because they get hurt and then they lose sight and lose connection with inside, because you rather not feel the pain. You rather be angry and retaliate. So it takes a lot of work and energy and love for yourself and just for other people to not really turn the cheek or close the eye to not see, but more so to forgive for the better good, right? That negative shit is cancer. And it really stunts your growth, and it stunts your life expectancy. Right? So you have to do better. We have to do better by our kids. Our kids are our future. They are our reflections. They are our reflections. And that's why you have to give them a sense of unity. In order for them to function and not become depressed. It's so easy to become depressed in this society. It's so easy. So what you have to do is create a community. You have friends, make them part of your family, especially if they mean well. You know, if you as an adult have other adult people who think and act like you, and you know stuff is not right within the dynamics of your group, is your responsibility as the aware one to say we need to do better because of our children that's coming up alongside of us, not underneath us. Your child is not underneath you. Understand that part. Your child is not underneath you, alongside. When you birth out a person, you sit them alongside of you. Think of the throne. You have your king and your queen, and then the heir is alongside of them, not behind and not below. Okay? Treat your children with respect, the way you would want to be respected. And if that seems too hard for you, then you need to work on respecting yourself, because deep down inside you don't respect yourself 100%, but you're demanding that the ones underneath you, your children, should respect you just because you're the bigger one, the older one, the supposed more wise one. But that's not really what it is. It's really a form of mental abuse. Slave PTSD. Punishment, corporal or physical. And then the mentality, the mindset is part of the slave mentality, the slave PTSD. that contributes to the breakdown of the family, because it's not just how we think about our counterparts, the men or the women who we decide to have a household with. It's how we think about our children. And our children are not our slaves. They are not our servants. They are not in servitude of us. We're in servitude of them. We birthed them. It was our job to make sure that they get everything that they need, pass it on from us to them so that they can grow and become ascendants of us. What do you say as a great parent, as a good parent? You say, I want my child to be better than me. How can they be better than you if you do not know how to raise them up? You're not raising them up. You're beating them down with the different things that you done went through in life, and you're putting it onto your child, especially the ones who be like, oh, I can't stand your fucking father. You know, you look just like him. Yo, sis, you just put a spell on your son. Take it back. Take it back and ask for forgiveness. And the females who have daughters, and you calling her all types of bitches and hoes and sluts and this and that and the third, who broke you and made you learn that it was okay to talk to your ear that way? Because that's all you're doing. You're passing it down. You don't really feel that way about your daughter. You just think that you do. You think you feel that way about your daughter. You think your daughter is this, that, and the third. And whatever behavior that she is doing right now is because of how you raised her. It's what she learned. Or whoever raised her is what she learned. It's not her fault. Teach her better. Show her better if you know how to do so. And it all starts with communication. Talk about it. Somebody has to lower their defenses in order for other people to see the true them. Be vulnerable. If you're hurting, cry. Don't be hard all the time. Don't let your hurt be perceived as anger. It's hard to connect that way. But I get it. It's that slave mentality, like I said. We had to learn to survive. And being sad all the time, being depressed, that would have killed you faster. Back then, in the slavery days, it would have killed you faster. You had to learn to be strong. You had to learn to eat whatever was given to you. Not food, but treatment. You had to learn to eat that. Yes, that's slang. That's slang, but you had to learn to eat that. You had to learn to push that shit down. That's why we were bringing in descendants instead of ascendants. We weren't rising. And that's the whole point. They wanted us to stay down. You can't control what is depressed. You can't control what is down. You can't. You can't. You have to be able to control their mind and their behavior from one generation to the next. You know that saying? It just came to my head. That saying, I'm going to beat you so bad your grandchildren going to feel it. That shit is true. Or they may say something like, and these are spells. And they may say something like, oh, if you don't pay me back, I'm going to sue you. I'm going to sue the pants off you. Your great grandchildren is gonna be in debt of me. Those are spells. They just spoke death over your ascension, and you believe it because you fear it, and there's really nothing to fear. You already know the possibilities of what can happen to you. So what are you afraid of? But you fear it, and you decide to comply. I have a problem with this society, this community, our community, us as black people, black, brown people, Spanish, African American, whatever identity is stolen from us. We don't even know who the hell we are. We don't. So that all of that title of categorizing us like we're not stock anymore. It's time for us to wake up, and the whole world is on this grand rising. In the whole world, and if you're not a part of it, you're going to be left behind. You have to start doing some soul searching. You have to start aligning your chakras and get in tune with your spirit. You have to start to sweep out that shit, push it out. I mean, really deal with it and let it become part of who you are so you can understand you. Because the reason why you're so conflicted is because you don't want to get to know who you were. You're running away from your past and you can't do it. These are lessons you're supposed to learn. You were put here to learn and move forward. You can't move forward if you're shackled to the old you or the you you're trying to run away with, which, you know, spiritual community, they like to call it shadow work, the shadow you, your shadow self. If you don't know how to do the shadow work, I would make a video on it. But there's a lot of YouTube videos out there. There are books, audio books. You can go to the library and you can read about it. Education, knowledge is the key. When you start to learn things, you're starting to communicate better. And then when you're starting to communicate, you can then unite. Our children are ascension line. They need unity. They need community. They need parents to be the protectors and the teachers and the nurturers. Because they then become lost. They become lost, you know? So as I take my journey and I try to figure out what it is that my son needs so that he could be seen, you know, I'm learning a lot about myself again. You know, like I said, my son and my oldest daughter, they so much alike. And I broke down on Tuesday. Earlier this week, I broke down on Tuesday after I was talking to my therapist. And me talking to my therapist, y'all, nowadays is me doing a lot of the talking. She asked a couple of questions because of my spiritual journey is in auto drive. I don't need somebody to hold my hand anymore. But to ask certain questions, it triggers certain thought processes within me. And then it clicks. Like, it just clicks. And I'm like, shit. Damn, I did that to my daughter. That was done to me. And it broke my heart. And then I sat heavy with it I'm still sitting heavy with it. It's becoming lighter every day. But yesterday, y'all, I felt like I was dying on the inside. And it was because I wasn't trying to accept it. I just wanted to feel the pain. And that was part of the old me. You know, the depressive me. I got used to and became addicted to the pain of depression because I thought that's all it was. I thought that's what it was. So now I learned to listen to my body. And I know that when I start to feel these sharp pains in my chest, depending on where exactly in my chest, I can kind of pinpoint, because I learned myself that well, I can kind of pinpoint what it is that's bothering me and how I can clear this energy. Breathing techniques help a lot. It helps a lot. Doing grounding exercises help a lot. And I went over these different things that you could do to help with anxiety in a previous video, one of my earlier videos. And I was able to calm down the negative me. And I had to reinforce my negative thoughts with some positive ones. Like, yes, I did make mistakes and I oversaw and I did not see my child for who they were. However, I am a brand new me, or the true me that I was supposed to be all the time. I am now. And what I'm implementing now is what my children are getting. So I'm starting to implement change, and change can be hard for certain people. So all of the talking that I'm doing with my son, I could see that it helps. And I could see the change within him. But what is hard for him to regurgitate are his feelings. Because living in a household with two dysfunctional parents, right? Two dysfunctional individuals, through seeing and witnessing things, you learn how to regulate yourself. And sometimes it's in the wrong manner. So you may see your parent walking around angry because of whatever transpired between the two parents, and they don't talk about it. Instead, they sit and they fume, or they fight physically, or argument happens. That's what my son has been doing. He feels some type of way on the inside, don't know exactly how to bring that out, or don't want to bring it out, and then he turns his anger towards my youngest daughter. Like, that's always his target. So that's alarming to me. It's not okay. And I'm not going to beat him because he's doing something wrong. I'm trying to correct the behavior so he can then become the strongest version of himself that he possibly can. I speak affirmations over my children every morning before they go to school. It's imperative to me that they get that positive energy from me every morning, because how you start your day dictates how your day will go. The mindset that you have. And he already started his day, particularly today, he started his day on the wrong part of the energy field, and I needed to correct that. And it was so bad that it started to infiltrate my energy field, so I had to correct that quickly. No matter what your child does that you don't agree with, always let them know that you love them, if that is true. Some parents don't have love for their children. I mean, it just wasn't in them. Just because you have children don't mean that you're a good parent. Don't mean that you are supposed to be a mother, but that's up to those individuals to figure out who they are and what's best for their child. The humanity part of them, the spiritual part of them would tell them, you're not fit to be this person's mother. So why don't you allow someone to raise your child who's going to give them what they need? I understand that's going to come with a backlash. You giving up your child is going to come with a backlash, because then they're going to want to know, why didn't you love me enough to keep me? Why couldn't you have raised me? And then it is up to you to be honest with yourself. And then hopefully that child was raised with a clear understanding of what the truth is within you, so that they can learn to accept it and move forward. Sometimes a mother will have a child, but they were not meant to be a mother. And if that's you, be honest with yourself. Instead of trying to raise a child and you putting misery on them, you're cursing them. Allow someone who can and is willing and able to raise your child and give them the best possible start that they need to have in life. It's a different thing if you're struggling. You want to be the mom. You feel it in your spirit, in your heart, that you can be the mom, but maybe financially or whatever, you don't have it. You ask for help. It's okay to ask for help. Don't let you and your child struggle. Don't build up these chains and these shackles of dysfunction that they're going to have to deal with later. It's not just the physical things that you put on your child. It's the mental things. It's the spiritual things. It's the emotional things too. So how you treat your child does matter. All of the yelling. You know what your child is thinking? Why don't my mom love me? Why does my dad hate me? I don't feel like I belong here. And then because they cannot connect with you, there's been a disconnection, a disassociation. Now they like, well, who am I if I don't want to be them? So then that's when you get the kids who grow up and they start dipping and dabbling in different things because they're trying to find who they are. The foundation that you lay for your child is very important. And you can't, this is the mistake that a lot of us do. Yes, I say us because I did it too in the beginning. You take what you didn't like from your childhood and say, I'm gonna do something different. I'm gonna do the opposite. Right? But you still wind up giving them the same shit your parents gave you. Like, really think about that. When you're like, oh, I'm not gonna beat my child because I used to get the worst butt whoopings. So you don't know or didn't know exactly how to counteract the butt whoopings that you got. So you just don't beat your child. All you do is yell at them. You may not have been physically beating them, but words have power. You're verbally beating them. You're not physically hurting them, but you're emotionally hurting them. And you're also abusing their mentality. It's the same thing with physical beatings. You're abusing their mentality. You're shaping and teaching them how to think about what it is that you're giving them. And then they normalize it as, this is just how you're supposed to get somebody to do what you want. I used to be a yeller. After I stopped doing the physical punishments with my kids in conjunction to, and then after that, I yell all the time. Once I started to calm down my spirit and understand why I was yelling, what was going on with me, what I known to be normal, and understand the anger is when I had to stop yelling. It doesn't feel good to be yelled at. If somebody came to you and yelled at you, right, and you're on this spiritual journey, your feelings will be hurt. Even if you're not on a spiritual journey and you just don't accept that because of whatever you've been through, your feelings is going to be hurt, but you're not going to realize your feelings is hurt. You're just going to be defensive and get angry. Like, who the hell you think you talking to? Who you yelling at? Now you want to fight. Deep down, your feelings is hurt because you don't deserve that. That's how your children feel. So because they can't fight you, some kids, they got it in them that they want to boss up and try to fight you, but they can't fight you. And when that happens, y'all, they will then turn towards somebody else and try to bully them or fight them or whatever. Like my son, he unfortunately experienced bullying. So that I want to say all my kids at some point in time experienced bullying. And I didn't handle it well with my older two. I wanted to go to the school and meet the parents so I could beat the kids' parents up. That's how I felt. I wanted to go to the school and beat up these kids' parents because I didn't appreciate that. I don't send my kids to put their hands on nobody or to talk bad to nobody. So I don't expect nobody to be sending their kids and them having to do that to my children. That's how I felt. So the way I went about it was, if somebody put their hands on you, you put your hands back on them. That's what we used to tell them. And if you don't, you come home and tell us that somebody put their hands on you, you're gonna get a butt whooping. Now, y'all, I don't know about Hispanic families, Latinos. I don't know, but in a black family, an African American household, that was wrong. It was wrong because you're teaching your child either you're gonna fight the world outside or you're gonna fight the world inside. All the way around is you're gonna fight. You gotta fight. No other options, no other resolutions. And then this is the reason why a lot of our community is so freaking angry and ready to fight all the time. It doesn't have to be a fight. Corrective energy, corrective resolutions. That whole mentality is what's in our schools, is what's in our prison systems, is what's in our hospitals. It's not designed to correct and rehabilitate. It's designed to condemn and some form of retaliation, but punishment. That's another video for another day. But I felt I handled the bullying situation poorly when it came to my older children, because I was pretty much telling them be tough. You know, don't let somebody else's feelings and views of you bring you down. But they were people at the end of the day. And how you feel as an adult and whatever you went through as an adult is not what their experiences are. Everybody has their own experience because everybody was put here to learn a certain kind of lesson. They have to learn a certain kind of lesson. So it was rough. Then I learned that my youngest son, he was getting bullied, but then he was making excuses for this bully. Like, oh, that's my friend, and you know, even though I told him to stop, you know, he just wasn't listening. That's a bully. It's not your friend. That's a bully. Normalizing bad behavior and then putting a label on it to make it okay. That's what he was learning in my household. So I had to teach him how to do bad. Well, I'm teaching him now how to look at things differently and speak up his feelings, because if you drown in the ocean, right, and you stop breathing, you can die. And then if somebody pull you out that ocean, they got to do CPR. They got to resuscitate you. They got to pump the air into your lungs for you to regurgitate what's not supposed to be there. You know, that's with liquids or solids. You got to bring up the stuff that's blocking your passageway so that you can breathe. You understand? And it's hard work to be a parent, especially if you are a damaged spirit. You have to fix that, and you can be the most, not perfect, but you can be the best damn parent you can be. And that's the goal of it all, right? You have to learn how to be the best version of you can be. And you won't be able to do that if you're sitting with a whole bunch of blockage, whole bunch of stuff from your past is just sitting right next to you. Like, what's up? You gotta learn. You have to learn to get rid of that stuff. You have to learn to get rid of that stuff. That's pretty much that is what I wanted to talk about today. And I'm coming out with some answered questions from part 1 of my roles of the black man and black woman in a community, or rather the roles of our kings and queens in our community, because it still goes back to that. And I want to get in on respect. I also plan on coming back out with a video about the black woman. I didn't really get a chance to go into it in the last video, but I want to touch up on that and touch up on the agenda of the sterilization processes that's happening, not just in America but around the world, particularly in our black and brown communities, because of the agenda. Now, like I said, it's a mass awakening happening all over the globe, but it's so important for us to know who we are and where we're coming from, and how much of a power force we are when we are united, and why they don't want us to have and continue to produce children. Now, they're about to sweat us out, smoke us out, whatever word you want to use, but they're about to try to force even more the agenda. So I'm gonna get into that. If you like my content and enjoy my videos, and you can connect with me on the different levels of things that I'm talking about, please hit that subscribe button and drop a comment below. And if you think that somebody can use this message or would agree, go ahead and share this video as well. I do appreciate you guys. And if nobody told you today, I do love you. You matter so much. You always matter. And the value that you have is greater than the value that you think you have. We are amazing beings. We are. And the sooner we can get out the gunk from our past and ascend and bring up our children with us, the power is unlimited. There's nothing we can't do. Nothing. I do wish you an abundance of positivity, and I do wish you prosperity. And I hope that you guys can learn to work together and communicate and, get everything back on track the way it should be. One way or another is going to happen, whether you're an early bird or a late comer, is going to happen. I'm just trying to help the process of moving that along. So until next time, guys.